All right. Well, thank you for joining us on EC&M Asks. I'm Dr. Heather Moore from MCA Incorporated, and I'm happy to answer some questions about the power of artificial intelligence and how to make that work for you. Just like any technology explosion, like search engines, email, fax machines, and many other things, the source of intelligence is that technology is in the technology. That is what makes it worthwhile. And so we're going to talk about that for a few minutes here and our take on how artificial intelligence is impacting construction and will continue to do so, how to keep you ahead of it in your life and in your business. So the first question that we get very often is, what is artificial intelligence in construction? And why should I care about it? Why should I care about that level of technology in construction? And so it's a great question, comes from many facets of folks we hear it from, and really depends on your level of interest from a spectrum of keeping pace with what's happening versus pioneering and building on the technology and using it to improve your business and the industry. So there are many applications using the name of artificial intelligence in construction. So if you're thinking in terms of keeping pace with what's happening, you can read and watch plenty of things about AI that's joining your virtual meetings and taking notes for you. There's the AI that's reading your contracts, drawings, and looking for words, clauses, things to flag and summarize. There's AI that can answer the phone, chats, and look for the customer to push more buttons that can reduce your time on phone calls and follow up with customers. So plenty of very day-to-day applications that can save time, depending on what you're looking at in your business. All of those are not that unique to construction, but they can be beneficial. On the other hand, let's think about the AI that can help you with productivity on your job, or generate predictive intel on how your projects will end up. AI solutions are as powerful as the data that they have available to them. And the more good data, emphasize good data, that you have, the more AI can support your business needs. Today's contractors have access to more data and information about their business than they've ever had before. However, you first need to question how well that data represents reality, which is why we like to call it agile intelligence, and that it's not artificial. In fact, it's actually at the source of where the job gets built and where the work happens. And so the data representing your own business and work environment is really the best source. And with the right AI infrastructure, you can use that data to produce highly accurate and timely projections of your business performance or your project performance, and in some cases, even your individual employee performance. One example we've been working on at MCA is a model that improves the point of project outcome prediction, going from predicting 95% accurately at about 40% complete of the project up to 10% complete of the project. And wouldn't you want to know where your projects will end at 10% complete? I know that sounds like a crystal ball, but this is not achieved using public AI platforms. It's based on 3 decades of experience and data harnessing the power of AI modeling. So in other words, AI is a part of daily life now, with risks, which we'll touch on a little bit later. So to keep pace, you need to be aware of the applications that are part of the norm and expect that your customers and competitors are using them. This is not something that you should just be looking at for the first time. It's a norm in the industry and moving very quickly. To pioneer, if you don't want to just keep pace and you want to stay ahead and frankly gain better outcomes from the technology, you need to tap into or build data sources that can take advantage of the modeling, like I explained, to predict outcomes earlier and more accurately. That's really where the rubber is going to meet the road in construction, is how can we use data to help us build better, faster, cheaper, safer. So moving on to another question that we get very often, and one of the very early researches that we started to look at when we heard AI coming up on the horizon is, what are the risks that I expose myself to with AI? And is this a threat to my business? This is another great question. And in times of never-ending data breach incidents, identity theft, relentless spam, business owners are very leery, or should be leery, of their confidential business information and data getting in the wrong hands. You need to be careful with what AI tools you allowed access to your data, which is getting so difficult now with the proliferation of them, with very minimal time to research and understand what they're doing and why and how. You need to be sure that your AI tools are not exposing your data on public websites. It's very easy to do without any notice because the AI bots want to soak up as much data as they can and capitalize on providing good return with that data, really without themselves asking the question of where that data came from or if it represents reality. So the best way to protect yourself against this is to use AI tools that focus on your data alone. The ones that try to gather and steal data are doing that to create a universal answer that doesn't really meet your needs, doesn't offer specifically relevant insight for your own business based on your own data. Construction management tools, like I have mentioned, and we've published a lot about in EC&M, DCI Construction, JPAC, and SIS. We've worked on incorporating AI in a way that it does not blend your data with data from other companies. And so any tools you're using for AI, that's a good question to ask and understand the risk that you take by putting your data out in public or in a sea of data with potentially your competitors or customers. So use the data to protect your business performance, analyze results. Tools like we've talked about don't need access to others' data for your needs, and they don't need your data to forecast other businesses. So that's a good question to ask is, where's the data going to? What else is it getting put together with? And think twice about really if you want to allow that to happen. All right, a couple more questions. One that we've gotten is like, where do I start? Where would a company start with this type of AI? You know, I don't have a data scientist on staff. I don't have the wherewithal to go build AI models. But really, if you think about the path to get there, that's actually the harder part. The technology these days is available and fairly easy to work with. But the path to get there is really the challenge. And so to get there, what you want to start with is identifying the sources like notes, notebooks, yellow sheets, green sheets for estimating, Excel files, tracking files, Smartsheet, any means in your business that collects your company's intelligence is really where you want to start. Unless you want to use an artificial intelligence that's not unique to your business, you want to be thinking about what is my intelligence in my company or in my project that I'm running, and where does the data about those things live? So that's really the place to start. You know, don't worry about what software or technology you need to use. Start thinking about what's the intelligence that you want to harness with AI. Then you have options of using a trusted source to transfer that data and information into a database-driven depository. We call that process, and we call DCI Construction the software, but the process goes by digitalization, commonization, and interconnection, which is not another accounting software or CRM or ERP. It's a centralization of the company's knowledge in a digitized form. Sounds really fancy, but really the simple part of it again is like, look around you, look around the job site, look around the office, and look at how are people storing and transferring their knowledge and intelligence about the business and the projects. And let me start with getting that collected, gathered, and out of their heads, most importantly. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question. So this is, okay, let's say I've done that. I've gathered everything, or at least the important things. How would I use it once I've gotten that far? And so our recommendation here is testing or matching your gut feel about the projects or about the financials or about your customers or how the work gets done, you know, the way you do it by osmosis with what the data actually shows. And does that match something that you want happening in your business? And there's a lot of stories about this with AI, even outside of construction, that AI technology gets used. Great examples in the medical field because of its power, and then ends up doing something wrong critically in a diagnosis or an application. And you start thinking like, okay, that's not the decision I would have made, or that's not the thing I would have done. And so if you've got AI in place and what's happening as a result doesn't really match how you do it, you know, that's a good place to kind of question. So ask your team to provide data that backs up their reports and decisions. Again, independent of the technology you're using, this is a great place to start with building the intelligence before you make it artificial. So we have a few questions that we're suggesting you could ask your project managers. One is, what data source are you using as a reference point for projected profit? Now, they might give you the first answer off the top of their head, which is the job cost report I get. But what we've seen over and over many years now is most project managers have some kind of spreadsheet on the side or some kind of special sheet that they're trying to look at the numbers and come up with a good way to explain what's really happening on the job site. So see if you can get to the bottom of that. Don't criticize, don't chastise them for it, but just try to understand what they're doing and why. A second question is, do you know which cost codes are the highest weight of contribution in a project? In other words, rather than solving a million problems on the job site or trying to search for 1,000 different labor codes to figure out what's going on, there should be a couple or a handful, which we talk about in our ASTM standard for job productivity measurement. 6 to 15 codes is statistically viable. So in your project, ask your project manager, hey, what are your 2 top cost codes? Or in your business, do you know what the largest bucket of work is? That alone might be an opportunity to, go right to the bottom line if you can improve its productivity, which we have written about and have several examples of that. Another question, can you qualify your percent complete with something in addition to cost? Again, kind of a trick question. So most project managers are going to calculate their cost based on, or calculate their percent complete based on cost. Have them go walk the job site and say, show me what 60% really looks like out here. Again, this has nothing to do with the AI technology, but the source of intelligence in construction is so rooted in how the job is built. If we miss these questions, we might have great AI tools, but they're not really going to help bring money to the bottom line. So those are a few questions that we've heard of and a few recommendations we have to get you started thinking about, AI doesn't have to be something nebulous and scary, but, things you can start looking at in your business today to really gather and document the intelligence. And the last quick question we have is this something we can do already with other software? We have XYZ accounting system, or this is our estimating tool, or we have a CRM we're using. And, this is kind of a broader answer to that question I just raised, but, really we recommend to align that your softwares, accounting software with estimating software to an operational database, meaning what's really happening on the job site, what's really happening out on that service truck that's in front of a customer every day. Because accounting software systems have been around longer, they're usually they're currently the most reliable, but it's also like looking in the rearview mirror. And so, when you're looking at an example of how your project managers, primarily like the people that are in the front seat that are making decisions about the jobs, or your service techs that are out in front of the customer making decisions about what equipment they're going to go buy, think about what data is at their fingertips to do it. And they need the estimate to have the reference point of the money in the bank, so to speak. The accounting data is going to tell them what happened after the fact. But what's really happening in the moment is something that we feel very strongly should be part of a third database measuring the operation. And we have a quick snapshot of what this looks like on the screen here that kind of shows what it means to try to interconnect all of those different data sources, very manually to getting to more of a digitalized view of that world, although it's still quite a bit of information to take in, and eventually getting to what we call the professional model of operation based on Dr. Perry's original research in this industry 25 years ago, which is that the data represents the same decisions that the pilot would make or the electrician would make out on the job site. And this type of model, this professional model, is what lets you go farther, faster, higher, and most importantly, safer. And so hopefully this has been helpful to give you a little bit of overview of the keeping pace, things that are going on today within the world of AI. There's plenty of information available if you want more on those of just the basics. And what we've wanted to focus on is, how can you actually build our agile intelligence that's based on your business, based on your projects, and help your business get better. So thank you very much for having us.